Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Iowa soccer supporters. I'm Ben Brackett here with my good buddy Blake Siebers. Siebes, soccer talk time. What's going on, man?
It is. We're kind of doing something we haven't done before, which I'm pretty excited for.
Yeah, I like it, mixing it up. So we've got our last week's episode, I think has gotten a little bit of action, and I think we're really excited to do some interviews to follow up on our ISL and CDL kind of conversation, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've got more feedback than I think we've gotten in maybe every episode combined. So we may have hit something that actually people want to listen to or discuss or whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I think
so like in the meet
too.
Well, exactly. I was going to say, so sort of while we're collecting some interviews, right, and doing a little more research and talking to some people about our previous episode, we thought we'd kind of go with the current events. And if you know much about the men's national team, the U.S. men's national team, that is, you know that they have a kind of an annual January camp. So we had a good friend of ours, Greg Velasquez, who Iowa guy, is coached locally, but now he's found a little bit of success on this podcast called the Scuff Podcast, right, Siebes?
Yeah, they've definitely found a niche for people, and they get tons of listens, tons of follows. That's for sure.
Yeah, so
that's the biggest part, right? I mean, you want to talk about U.S. national team players. We all can name the top. Most people can name the top 10, 12, but you get deeper.
Maybe even 11.
Yeah.
So had a chat with Greg, and I mean, they focused really heavily on the U.S. men's national team and then the young players too. So pretty cool little conversation to learn about what he's doing and then kind of just see what the men's national team's up to. So why don't we just jump right into it? There is a game on Sunday, January 31st. The national team takes on Trinidad and Tobago. So this is kind of a conversation in preparation to that.
Great. Let's get to it, Ben.
Okay, Greg Velasquez, welcome to the pod. How are you?
Gentlemen, I'm doing great. It's great to be here with y'all.
What a pleasure this is. I'm sure you've listened to a bunch of our episodes, knowing that you're an avid podcaster yourself.
I'm an avid Iowa soccer fan is what I am.
I love it.
All right, well, I'll let Blake take over then.
So the first question we asked every guest is always the same, and I'm going to kind of tweak it a little bit. Is this the first time you've ever been a guest on a podcast?
It actually is. It is the first time. I don't know that I'm terribly in demand as a guest podcaster.
Being your first time, I would say that's your statement.
I'm not fighting off invitations.
But go. It's clearly.
I was gonna say I'm excited to have him here, Steves.
I am too. And it's clearly not your first time on a pod. So can we just kind of I don't know, Ben, where you want to go? If you want to talk about your backstory question or origin or story, or what do you take?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's Greg. You and I have known each other for a while now in our coaching days, but I've never given you the full on. So I mean, I know you're from Muscatine, but why don't you give us a little bit of your origin story on how you grew up playing the game, how you got into coaching. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing there's probably still part of you somewhere that's still playing, whether it's in the basement with your daughter or, you're finding somewhere to hop in net.
So I was born in the Muscatine soccer complex, more or less. No, I was in middle school when they built that thing, and it was just this palace for us. And it was, I don't know if a lot of your listeners have been there because I know a lot of the tournaments have moved away from that complex. But when it was built, it was this Midwest mecca for soccer fields because it was just amazing quality. I think I don't want to get into kids these days being spoiled, but with all of the turf fields and even the really nice grass fields at County and elsewhere, and then obviously what you guys are doing with some of your mini pitches, we're finding more and more places to play. I know when we were growing up, it was a lot of mostly dirt fields and some really scary shrapnel that you're playing around. Anyway, in the mid 90s, Muscatine built 6 amazing soccer fields just in the middle of nowhere. And so every weekend for us at that point, it was like, let's go down there, sneak onto a field and play. There were tournaments every weekend. We would go play on some unused portion of the fields until they kicked us off. And that's sort of where I grew to love it. Played a little bit here and there at Iowa State and then at Simpson College. And just while I was at Iowa State, one of the other guys who I played with, Ryan Sander, who is still involved in the game here in Des Moines, was like, hey, I'm coaching the Waukee girls high school soccer team. Will you come down and help coach the goalkeepers? And I went down there and immediately just fell in love with coaching. Have been doing it more or less ever since. That was in 2002.
So now you would have been like, maybe not even you would have been still in school probably, right?
Yeah. I was like 19.
Sure.
And I was just like, just something about it is just amazing. It's just like this problem solving where you're able to tell players to do things that I'm not capable of doing, was never capable of doing as a player, but I can tell them to do it and like watch them actually do good soccer. I think that's why I love coaching. Oh, you guys are like, good. You can do these things that in my head, I think should be done. So
that's one of the things I love about you though, Greg, is you will jump into, you'll play left back, you'll play goalkeeper, you'll play striker. You're just like, I want to play. You love doing it. And you're obviously every kid that I know that's ever played for you always loves you, even though they tell me weird stories about you not wearing shoes.
Yeah, I was a kid and we just wore sandals everywhere. Who has time for socks and proper footwear? That was a big change when you got into like real coaching. They're like, no, you have to look professional. And it's like, do you though? Do you need to look professional? These sandals work. They're relatable.
So you coached basically for, call it 20 years or so.
Thereabouts,
and then you've kind of recently taken a step back for family.
Yeah, I started when Waukee was still a 1A school, so that feels like an eternity ago, doesn't it? Yeah, and just my last season was 2019, and I know the 2020 high school season didn't happen. Is 2021 going to happen? Is there going to be a high school season this spring?
We hope so.
I'm asking you guys the questions now.
Yeah,
Blake,
I mean, they're playing basketball.
Just turn the tables.
Yeah, they're playing basketball and wrestling. So, and they played football, right? They had a football.
Yeah, they got to have soccer in there. Throw it in there.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited to go watch some games. I haven't been able to really be a spectator at games. I've been doing a lot. I do a lot of the. I was deep into the coaching scene.
Well, you'll have to maybe join the game of the week staff if you're interested in that. We go to a lot of high school games, and basically for the same reasons, just kind of get out and check it out, and it's been pretty fun.
Oh, I love what you guys are doing because for me, like high school soccer is such like a celebration. I feel like you guys capture that really well. You have the club scene, and that's really fun, and it's really raised the level of the game in Iowa. And then you go to high school and it's just such like a I don't know, I mean, it's such a crash course of like 3 months of nonstop soccer. It's a blast. I love high school soccer.
Yeah, the environment is second. I mean, doesn't even compare, does it, with the students in there? And that's fun. That makes it cool.
I wish I would have embraced high school soccer more looking back at it, because I was always so frustrated by it when I was in it, but looking back, that was silly of me.
Yeah, it's just there's definitely those elements of, I mean, the range of player quality is so vast. But for when you're in that setting, like that's part of the fun. Like that's a great time. How do you reconcile all those things?
You must have played for Muscatine High School.
Yeah, I did. I was a goalkeeper back then.
Very good.
We would have been
state.
No, we did. We would have been on the. Well, we were probably I'd say we were probably a mid-table school.
You guys were
sure
1A for sure, right?
No, Muscatine surprisingly has a large student base, but it's because they fold in a couple of rural schools into our population, which bumps us up to like 4A, or in high school it would have been 3A for soccer back then. So
let's talk national team, because obviously that's your expertise that we brought you here for. Because otherwise we could just talk and talk and talk, which we know from experience. So tell us a little bit about your Scuff podcast. I know that you, as you've mentioned, are just you're maybe not like the brain behind it all, but tell us a little bit about it.
A buddy of mine, Adam Bells, he used to be a reporter for the Des Moines Register, actually, was just getting really into like soccer and specifically the U.S. men's national team. And this was in like 2017, 2016 even. and he was really into like tracking some of the younger players who he thought were kind of coming up, totally off the radar for even some diehards, but any casual fan would not have heard of any of these people. And so he's talking to me about him, and this is all happening as the U.S. men's team is going through World Cup qualifying. And as we all know, like that ended horribly with the U.S. failing to qualify for the World Cup in 2018 after losing to Trinidad and Tobago in 2017. And so what he did was he sort of took me aside and asked if I wanted to do this podcast with him, where we would sort of talk about whether or not the U.S. could get back on track. And so what we've done is we just had this podcast that's almost entirely focused on this new crop of players coming up. And again, we were doing this in 2017, 2018, when there was no real sense of whether or not there would be a new crop of players that would be coming up that would be good enough to compete at the international level. And fortunately, if anyone is following the U.S. now, number one, welcome. Your timing is impeccable. But number two, if you have been following for a while, congratulations. Like, these are very exciting times, I think, for U.S. men's national team fans.
So can I jump in there, Ben, really quick?
Yeah.
So because you guys, I mean, the Scuffed podcast, you guys just on Twitter, I mean, you've got 13,000 followers. So you are definitely, people listen and care. So I'm curious how you guys kind of just built it from the ground up, and just what was kind of the key to building that from scratch?
So Adam Bells is a co-host of this with me, and it was sort of his brainchild, and he built sort of the brand early on in these early days. And he
who were some of your big first interviews? Because I'm like, I know that was sort of where he was interviewing like guys that are now like real big time.
Yeah. So back then he was interviewing guys like Chris Richards and Serginho Dest and Richie Ledesma, back when they were still youth soccer players that no one had ever heard of because they were playing like U17 soccer somewhere. He kind of pioneered, actually, like on Twitter, because some of these things had just become available back in 2017, like threading tweets, like that had just started to be a thing that you could do. And he would find really obscure video of players that, and he'd pick out highlights of their games and like put those together in a series of clips that now that just seems so normal that any soccer highlight that occurs anywhere in the world you see within 30 seconds. But that wasn't really a thing back then. So he was actually doing this for U19 players in the USL, like he was putting these together for US eligible players. And that really took off because that just wasn't a thing that would happen. It used to be when we watched or follow US players, it was like, oh, Michael Bradley played 75 minutes for, Borussia Mönchengladbach. And that was all you could see. That's all you knew, was that he played 75 minutes in the game. But now Bells comes along and he's like, oh, here's 8 clips of this kid playing in a USL game. And that just really took off. People were really interested to actually see the players. And it's now kind of spiraled into several accounts now on Twitter, kind of working in a community where anytime an American plays anywhere in the world, they compile every action the guy had in the game. And within 20 minutes, like, you can see everything that Tyler Adams did for Red Bull Leipzig last weekend.
Who's your favorite guest you've had?
What's that?
Who's your best or favorite guest?
So
whatever, however you want to.
My favorite guest is actually an organization that I think is kind of a lot like Kick It Forward. It's called Joy of the People from Minnesota. It's a Minneapolis outfit that like promotes just people playing soccer. You come in and play for free, and it's all the ages playing together. That might not be as exciting, or since that's already what you guys are doing. Probably my favorite guest he's had on is either from actual competitive soccer would be either Serginho Dest or Tab Ramos. Like, those guys just had a lot of cool things to say. It was fun listening to him.
Yeah, Serginho Dest, that must be like, to think that you're, in a few years or down the road, he might be one of the world's best players.
It was amazing. So this would have been like late 2019, 2018 maybe. And he was just like, people don't know, but they need to watch out. Like, the US is coming. And
That's awesome.
we've just been watching that happen. It felt like slow motion for a while, but now it just feels like it's happening in fast forward. We'll see. We still have to actually play the games on the field, but we're very excited about the player pool.
The thing I think is kind of interesting about what you guys do too is, like, obviously you're paying attention to some of those, like the bigger names like Serginho Dest or Christian Pulisic or whoever, Weston McKennie. But like, Weston McKennie's like, he's playing for Juventus. anybody can flip on ESPN Plus and watch him. You guys are following like guys that are just, that are really obscure, and it's given them a platform. I think it's really cool. So, and I think that's maybe a great transition into this next weekend and the January camp. For those of our listeners who don't know, maybe talk about the January camp and kind of what that is overall for the men's national team. It's kind of become it's like an annual staple.
Yeah, so they do this every year where in January, which is the MLS off season, but where almost all the other leagues around the world are still very much in season, so their players are still not available. We basically just take the MLS players, put our best U.S. eligible MLS players into a camp for like 3 weeks, and then cap it off with the game at the end of it. I think it almost started out as a way to like just get them more playing time, because MLS season used to be really short. It was like an 8 or 9 month season. 8-month season. So some of the coaches were like, well, our national team players just need more reps. Like you can't just sit out for 3 months and expect to be able to compete at a high level. So this was almost like a stopgap. It's turned into, over the last 2 or 3 years, it's turned into a chance to try to identify some of the younger players in the pool who have a chance at really breaking through and putting them alongside a few of the sort of veteran players who are already sort of solidified within the roster. Is
this called like the Camp Cupcake or something like that? What does that mean?
It was affectionately called Camp Cupcake because it was not our full strength team. A lot of our best players, even back in the day, whether it was Michael Bradley in Germany or we had our European contingent of players who tended to be our key players, and so it was kind of like this was like the leftover guys, or it'd be a lot of the players in this camp would never really contribute to a full strength U.S. national team. And that's probably still the case. We're still looking at out of 25 players in this camp, only 8 or 9 of them might be real players come World Cup qualifying. So this was almost, it was very much thought of as like a throwaway camp. And it used to not really have a real clear sense of how it was going to contribute to the plan going forward. But I think now with Burhalter in charge and sort of what they've been doing, it does seem like there's a real plan for how we're going to use these minutes and these weeks of training to try to learn something about the pool. And it's not just like a MLS All-Star game. There's real sense of player identification almost.
So Greg Burhalter, before we talk about the squad, tell us a little bit what you think about him, kind of what obviously he's done some pretty cool stuff. I'd also be curious on your feelings of the spelling of his first name with 3 G's as opposed to 2. I don't know how you feel about that.
It's like the 8th best way to spell Greg. Like, it's a terrible way to spell Greg, but he's doing a lot of other things right at the moment. So again, after sort of the spectacular crash and burn of the 2018 cycle, there was a slow motion house cleaning at U.S. Soccer. It took like a year and a half to get Greg Burhalter in, about a year to get Greg Burhalter in as the new head coach. 2019 had a lot of ups and downs, quite a few downs. But 2020 has seen him turn some things around in a big way, both on the field, which, there were not that many games to play in 2020, given the, global pandemic. But then off of the field, you see these really cool, like, culture building, program building things that he's doing. He's doing a great job of like recruiting players who are eligible to play for multiple countries. He's bringing them into the fold. And it really seems like the experience he's providing players makes them want to be a part of the U.S. national team, makes it a lot more fun to sort of follow the squad and root them on. So we still have to see whether or not all of this translates into results against the better teams that we play against. But on paper, a lot of things are going well for Greg Burhalter at the moment.
Who's on his staff, Greg?
Oh, let's see. You're putting me in a spot here.
Put on the spot.
So Jason Kreis is the U23 coach.
And so this camp is unique in that it's a real big mashup of the U23s and sort of the full, adult men.
Yeah, the senior team.
Senior team, thank you.
When they first announced the roster, there were only 12 players in the senior camp. So it was like a half squad. And then there were like 25 players in the U23 side, and they were all just kind of training together. And then the intent was always to sort of take the best players from the U23 group and funnel them in with the senior team for this match. So it was kind of like a survivor situation where the best players got to, or the best players got to stay on the island essentially
Bracket.
with the senior
Did you
team.
listen to their this last Scuffed the Scuffed podcast about the camp? You would love it because they.
I'll check it out. I haven't.
Called it a battle royale multiple times.
Ooh,
that's just like your.
I love a battle royale.
It was like combat. Like whoever wins gets to stay on, and the losers, have to leave the island in shame.
And so they just the senior team just literally had a 12 guy camp.
Yeah, and well, again, they were all together. So, but I don't know how much interaction there was. And some of the early sort of social media posts from it was like nothing for the senior players. It was like nothing but like 6v2 rondos. Like they didn't have the three goalkeepers were over here doing something, and like the other guys were just kind of messing around, waiting for the youngsters to show up.
That's funny. So you want to talk about the player pool a little bit? I mean, I know actually maybe before we even do that. So we've got the World Cup in 2022, right?
Yep. In November of 2022, which is kind of a departure. So it's it's farther away than just a year than the summer.
Got it. Sorry, Blake just had a visitor at his window there, didn't you see?
Keep going. I'm listening.
Yeah, exactly. But then you've also working backwards. You've got the Gold Cup this coming summer. World Cup qualifying, but then there's also the Olympic qualifying as well, right?
Yeah, so I'll work forward from now. So we've got this all my timelines. Have you seen Tenet? Like we're moving in these different directions. So we've got
I can only watch so much. My mind actually exploded.
So we've got this current camp, which is a portion of the player pool. Come March, it's a full FIFA window, which means no matter where you're playing, like your club has to release you for some friendlies that I'm sure we'll put together for that. And so we'll get the full pool, but also in March, it's so wild this calendar year. Also in March, down in Guadalajara, we'll send 20 of our U23s to go try to qualify for the Olympics. So they'll play some games down there and they have to earn their way into the Olympics. And if they do, then come summer, we've got Concacaf Nations League. Are you guys familiar with the Concacaf Nations League?
We're in the semifinal, right?
Yeah. So it's just this nonsense tournament that exists with the trophy for some reason, where we'll play Costa Rica or Honduras. I think we play Honduras in the semifinal, and then the winner or loser of Costa Rica and Mexico. So we'll have 2 games there. Also in the summer, we've got the Gold Cup. That's for sure happening. And then if we've qualified, we'll also have the Olympics. So there'll be 3 tournaments this summer. And Burhalter has basically said nobody's going to be on 2 rosters, which means if we're in all these events, we'll have 3 totally different rosters. So we're looking at whatever that is, 60 odd US players that are going to get some chances to impress this summer.
Can we talk a little about the Olympics really quick?
Let's.
I mean, obviously big disappointments, I think, in the history of the U.S. and lack of qualifying. And when they do, or we struggle mightily. So are we putting, I mean, because if we put our best U23 team out there, to me, it's like super dangerous, but is that the plan, or what are the thoughts there?
So odds are no, that can't be the plan. And it's because the Olympics on the men's side is still considered a youth tournament. The players have to be born because of the COVID, and the Olympics were supposed to be last summer. Now they got pushed a year. The cutoff date for birth year is 1997. So if you were born before 1997, you can't play in it. So it's going to be essentially a 24.
They're not allowing overage players anymore.
So you get 3. So it's
okay.
It's all going to be now 24 years or younger. They're referred to as U23s. And then you get 3 overage players for the actual tournament. Qualifying has to be all age eligible. So no overage players in qualifying in March. But then if we qualify in advance for the summer, then we can throw 3 grown-ups into the mix. But yeah, it's a youth tournament, which
Some
also
seniors.
means that club teams don't have to release their players. They're not obligated to let them go. So if Christian Pulisic goes to his new manager at Chelsea and says, "Hey, I want to go play in the Olympics," they can just be like, "No, thank you. We want you to be at our preseason. You're not going to go play in the Olympics."
Are we putting is the plan to put those guys like him and Reina on the Olympic squad if we qualify, or what, do you know, or what's the?
I would guess they'll be at the Gold Cup.
So we don't know for sure. There's so many moving pieces to this. It's crazy. Burhalter has basically said they won't be on more than one roster. It sounds like they might use the Nations League to try to put the full strength like A team together for that 2-game series. And he just said in a press conference yesterday, they probably try to schedule a friendly before that. So it'd be a 3-game stretch to get the full first strength group together. The issue with the Gold Cup is it comes much later in the summer. It's like July,
Sure.
which would mean that any players who play in that who are European based would miss their club's preseason, and that could put them in a bad spot going into the fall, into the next year. But no, as far as getting our very best players for the Olympics, it just seems really unlikely. Like they just aren't, their clubs probably won't play ball. And so I don't think they want to do a hodgepodge of like, oh, well, if we can't, we'll still if we can get Tyler Adams, we'll put him in the Olympics, but Pulisic and Reyna are going to be over here in this other roster. Like it wouldn't surprise me if they just say nuts to all that. We'll just get our very best squad for this CONCACAF Nations League game, and whoever's left over will bring to the Olympics.
Do you think? I mean, to me, wouldn't we be in medal contention if everybody put their it's strictly just say U23 plus your 3 over age? We would be, which to me would be pretty cool. And you want to talk about momentum in the States, if that would happen, and look what to me is like mainstream media would catch on.
Yeah, especially here in the States, it'd be amazing. I would love it. I'd love nothing more than to have our absolute full strength team play in the Olympics, which would be almost indistinguishable from our actual full strength team, because so many of our players, we skew to the youth for the top of our talent. It'd be incredible. I would love if we would do that. I just don't think it's feasible, because I don't think the players' clubs would go for it. If we can talk them into it though, and the guys we have working on that would be Ernie Stewart and Brian McBride, who've taken key roles in the U.S. soccer program. They're in contact with all these players' clubs, but it's just I think that'd be too big of an ask.
So theoretically, this January event is really like, I mean, these are guys that are looking for a Gold Cup spot, most likely.
Well, so
they're Olympic guys,
yep,
right?
Yep,
they're one or the other. But this is sort of like your, I don't know, your bottom tier of players that we're looking at, essentially.
I don't even know if you can go that far, because so what's cool about that 12-man camp that Burhalter pulled together is he almost like dispensed with the players who are more of the reserve side. So the players that you're talking about who would be like the leftovers of the fringe, he basically just didn't call them into the camp. Like he was just like, nope.
Give me an example of somebody like that.
So that'd be like a Will Trapp or a Daniel Lovitz, like these guys who are kind of on the fringe of the senior team. He just left them out completely. And he's just like, nope, I'm only calling in guys who are already, and this is sort of me speculating on his thought process here, but it matches up with like the guys who are in this camp for the senior team are very likely still the only guys remaining on the domestic side who are in contention for our actual full strength team. If you're not, I think he basically just left you off.
So you're talking about like Josie Altidore or Paul Areola, like guys that are, I mean, they're proven national team players.
Right. And I think like
Aaron Long, maybe,
who's one of his center backs. Like, I think that's a guy that he is trusting at the moment as his starting center back. So I think at the moment he just sort of trimmed the fat a little bit ahead of time with his call ups.
So does somebody like Josie play, or is he just there for camp, and then like one of these other guys is kind of in the mix because it's you know what I mean? It's like a chance to get him a run.
Well, we don't know for sure, but I'd be surprised if Josie didn't start this weekend, because he missed like every other camp last year, since there were so few. The ones that we did have, he missed with injury. So Josie hasn't suited up for the men's team in like 18 months now. And he didn't play that much even before that, because again, it's just injuries didn't match up with tournaments. So Josie has barely played for Greg Burhalter. So I think this will be a chance for Burhalter to learn about Josie, and for Josie to see what his role will be in these sort of new systems.
If you look at the caps, if you look at the caps of all the players that are in the mix still, it's like, like Josie has over 100, and there's a couple other people with double digits, and then it's just like ones and twos.
It's insane. It is insane, the changing of the guard we're looking at here.
So Go ahead.
And, a lot of this goes back to that failure to qualify for the World Cup. But what's interesting is even if we had in whatever alternate universe where we did qualify for the World Cup in Russia in 2018 and had a perfectly respectable showing, we would still have to be doing this. We'd still have to turn over almost the entire team because all of those guys in that last cycle, all of our key players were just pretty old, and all the guys who are sort of in their prime now, age-wise, like weren't very good. So we were always going to be left with like this huge void that had to be filled by these super young players. And so it was just like crossing your fingers that they would come along. And then, they have definitely come along.
So what is Greg Velasquez, the national team pundit, looking for this weekend?
Greg with 2 G's.
There's almost nothing that you can take from a game like this. Like, you don't want someone to fall flat on their face. If a guy just looks totally off the pace, that might be where you say he's not there yet. But everyone should look like they're better than their competition, because Trinidad and Tobago is a pretty bad side. As respectfully as you can put it. On this, I know they beat us to knock us out of the World Cup last time, but our players, man for man, are much better than theirs. So you're just looking for the team to look like they can play in rhythm, and all that does is sort of maintain the status quo. Nobody can really go out and put themselves on the map. It's like, oh, this guy is now jumps up 4 spots in the depth chart. Like, you can't really do that in a game like this.
So you mentioned Trinidad and Tobago. So before we talk more about us, will they be putting out a full side, or will they be, will this be a young group for them, or what? Do you have? I tried Googling it. I didn't Google very hard, but like the only things that would come up were about the U.S. national team. I couldn't find anything about Trinidad and Tobago.
To my knowledge, I'd been checking over the weekend. They haven't even announced their squad yet, so I don't know for sure. A lot of their players would be available, even like their first choice players. Most of them would be available because they're also a domestic based squad. But I don't know. I don't know how strong a group they're bringing. But again, even if they were bringing their very best squad, we played them in the Gold Cup in 2019 in the group stage, and I think beat them 6-0. They aren't there. They turned over a lot of their generation after the last cycle too. And again, our starting point is way higher. So this should be a pretty comfortable thrashing. We're playing it at home.
Why are we scheduling things like this? I mean, I have no idea why, but it's like, to me,
Travel,
nothing good can come of it.
So yeah, you kind of have to take what you can get here. We can't get full strength teams against us because of the same reason we can't field a full strength team. Like, all of Germany's best players are playing their club season right now, so it's not like they can come over and play a game. We were actually going to play a Serbian domestic squad. That was the rumor. Which I don't, who knows what that would have looked like. It would have been all the Serbia players who weren't good enough to play outside of Serbia. But they couldn't come over because of travel restrictions. So I think we had to scramble to find an opponent. It was the Trinidad was only announced like a few days ago. So, right. So I think part of this is the pandemic made it difficult to line up a game.
So from what I could see, as far as the American players go, there's a little bit of excitement around Andres Perea. What do you know about him, or give us his story?
So this goes to Burhalter being good at convincing players that the U.S. is the destination for them to play. Andres Perea is a Colombian-American dual national. He'd actually been a key player for Colombia in the 2019 U20 World Cup. So he actually had to file paperwork to switch and change his eligibility to the U.S. He's now permanently tied to the U.S. for soccer playing purposes. And it's exciting because he's like a holding midfielder. And for the last 2 or 3 years now, it's sort of been assumed that Tyler Adams would be our starting holding midfielder, but we didn't have a very good like for backup for Tyler Adams. If Tyler Adams wasn't playing, people were still throwing out like Michael Bradley as his backup. And so if you know anything about those two players, they are not similar players. So it's like, okay, well, you're going to change your, Tyler Adams goes out with injury. You would have to change your whole setup if you're going to use Michael Bradley in that position instead. And I think the excitement around Perea is that he seems to be a more like for like player with Tyler Adams. So it gives us this new hope that we can actually like have real backups for some of our players.
I gotta
Will you
ask.
play this?
Go ahead. Sorry, Ben.
No, you're fine. Seems, go ahead.
I was just changing this. I was gonna ask about a different player. So finish up on.
No, do it.
Okay.
Well, hopefully we'll get to see him play. That's all I was going to say.
It wouldn't
I'd like to
surprise
see
me if he
that guy.
starts. I feel like he'd file his paperwork. You might get a start for doing that.
There you go.
Hopefully he negotiated that, right?
Yeah, I'll come as long as I get to start this next game.
Yes, I mean, so obviously soccer, small world. Chris Mueller, right? That's how you pronounce it. Like played here with the Menace. How long ago was that? 3, 4, 5 years? 3 years ago?
I did not know that. I did not know there was a Menace connection there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you didn't see when he scored his goal when he scored 2 or 3 goals in his debut.
He scored. I think he scored 2 and assisted 1. But at no point during that time did the marquee go up and say former Menace player. They clearly dropped the ball on the production there.
Obviously, your Twitter wasn't working, or you don't follow the Menace, because it was about the only thing they tweeted for a few days, wasn't it?
Oh my God, no! I'll have to add that back in. I have like a local soccer channel on Twitter that I follow, but I haven't been as active on it since I stopped coaching at Waukee.
Well, hopefully they haven't blocked you, so you know.
I've got a lot of alts. they can't block them all. I'm sneaking around.
I don't talk about him because, like you said, he made a huge impression there, scoring those 2 goals, and he had a good, obviously good season with Orlando. What are your thoughts?
So I'm super cynical by nature. So I'm lukewarm on the performance. He had a great. I mean, it's his debut for the U.S. men's national team. He scores 2 goals and his assist. Who can complain about that? And I'm like, it doesn't mean that much to me because of the competition was so weak.
It was bad.
But for him, that's still an amazing. That's an amazing debut. But I'm very high on the season he had for Orlando. Like he was statistically like one of the best attackers in the league. And that's a huge jump from where he'd been in the years prior. Orlando got a new coach, so they've implemented this new system, and he is thriving. So, and he's not that old. He's just missed being Olympic eligible. I think he's a 96 birth year. I didn't know about that Menace connection. No, my big criticism actually of Chris Mueller was that in that El Salvador game that he scored all those goals, there was a cross that came into him that was just looping, and it was uncontested. And the only thing in the world that I wanted him to do was attempt a bicycle kick, because I love when people attempt bicycle kicks. There is a real honor in the attempt, and he didn't go for it. He just headed it back across goal, and so I immediately crossed him off of my depth chart for the rest of this cycle. He's gonna have to earn me back.
Yeah, Greg is always the guy. Like if there's an opportunity for like a full volley on goal, like even if it's not a really good idea, you'd take it, right?
You have to. It's like always. The entire game, the game of soccer exists to create like these low percentage volley and bicycle attempts. That's why we're out there. Everything else is just like a charade in service to the attempted bicycle.
I'm sure you loved old Wayne Rooney's goal then a few years ago.
Yes.
Right? I mean, those are the goals you still talk about how many years later.
Yeah. They did win that. It was against Manchester City, right? They did win on that goal. But no, the entire time I was coaching at Waukee, our team motto was volleys count double. Like if you have a volley attempt, you must attempt it. I don't care if you have all the time in the world to settle it, bring it down, tap it into an empty net. Like you do not pass up the volley attempt.
Strike it. So talk about the rest of it. Just kind of like what, I don't know, give us your preferred 11 based on like who intrigues you. And maybe, it doesn't necessarily have to be the best 11 or the most likely 11, but I'd like to hear the 2G Greg version.
Okay. You want me to start at goalkeeper since it's
yeah. Do it proper.
I'm going to be interested too, Ben, what his formation, right? Like this gets down to tactics as well.
Let's go.
So we're going to go with Matt Turner in goal, Matt Turner of the New England Revolution. I don't know how closely you guys get or how deep into the weeds of U.S. men's national team, like Twitter, you get into, but Matt Turner has a pretty avid following. And like the stat nerds will tell you that Matt Turner is a much better goalkeeper than Zach Steffen. Steffen, who's at Manchester City, pretty established very clearly established as their number 1 goalkeeper. Matt Turner's shot stopping is like a glitch in goalkeeper statistics. It's insane.
And so all 3, this will be his first cap or whoever's first cap in goal, right? All 3 of them are or noobs?
Yep. Sean Johnson was sort of the incumbent backup to Zach Steffen, and he went down with an injury. I don't know if Turner would have started ahead of him or not. He probably won't have that much to do, in all honesty.
Yeah.
But for a lot of these people who are excited about Matt Turner, we're excited to see him get a game here.
Do you, just while we're talking about goalkeepers, do you think that Sean Johnson is a serviceable number 2?
Yes, I'm very happy with. There was Steffen missed a lot of the past season when he was on loan in Germany with an injury, and there was a bit of hand wringing. This was before all of the World Cup qualifying and stuff got pushed a year for the pandemic, and there was a little bit of like people worrying about, well, if he can't go, who's going to go? And it's like, we have a lot of good goalkeepers. They might not be, at the peak levels that we enjoyed with Friedel and Howard and Keller, but our goalkeepers are very much in the serviceable realm.
It's always something the Americans are going to do well, I think.
So I think Turner's going to start. I don't think he'll have much to do on the day, but I'm excited for him to get that cap. We'll go with some veteran center backs and they're veterans for the Burhalter era. Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman. They've pretty well established themselves. The other 2 backups for those guys are U23 guys, Miles Robinson and Mauricio Pineda. But I think Burhalter will just lean on his captains. Like he really trusts these 2 guys. Do you guys have anything on any of these players, or do you want me to just keep going?
You can keep going. I was going to say Miles Robinson was one I thought you might throw in there. He had a good year last year, didn't he, in MLS? He had
a really good I guess second year. It's hard to say who's a rookie. His second year where he was an Atlanta starter for a really good Atlanta team was a big deal. Atlanta was bad last season.
Yeah, I know that.
As a team, like pretty dreadful. Miles Robinson, I think, was fine. The big thing with Miles Robinson is that he's apparently just an incredible 1v1 defender who you can you can take a lot of risks in your offensive shape with him left at the back that you can't take with other defenders. So that's sort of what he offers at the club level is Michael Parkhurst would talk about it. He'd be like, we would send our entire team forward where normally you have to leave at least 1 extra man back on defense. So, if the other team is leaving 1 forward high, you've got to leave 2 guys high. And like the defensive plan for Atlanta was to just leave Miles all by himself with a guy. So they trusted him that much, and he was that good at recovery defense. So, but I think I don't think he's there yet with Burhalter. So, and I don't think we'll need that style of defending. Sorry, again, I'll get as detailed as you.
Oh, I love it. I love it. What? So then you're going to play 3 in midfield or 4? What's your preference there, Coach?
So it's going to be. I'd be shocked if it's anything other than a 4-3-3. And I think the shape it will take here is that there's going to be like one very much designated holding midfielder. I'll give you the fullbacks here quick. Then I think.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll say Ben, you can't play with 2 at the back.
It's good. It's good to go through the formation,
good, right?
I did need to give the formation ahead of time. If I'm telling my team what they're going to play, you gotta let them know what the formation is. And you might hate me here. I don't always like pick specific guys. Like I don't care who the left back is between George Bello and Sam Vines. Like play either of them. We're in this mode where they're both prospects. We need to see both of them play at one time or another. So whether it's George Bello, who's a 18-year-old playing for Atlanta United, or Sam Vines, who I think is like a 21-year-old playing for Colorado Rapids, it doesn't really matter. Like throw them on there, see how they do.
Fair enough.
At right back, it's similar. We've got 3 young kids: Julian Araujo, who's like 20, and then Kyle Duncan and Aaron Herrera, who are both early 20s. And it's the same kind of thing. Pick one. I don't have a strong preference. I don't know how anyone would have a strong preference. But if you guys have strong preferences on those players, you tell me.
No, I don't really know. Do you know any of those? I know the Julian. I'm not going to try. I heard you say it, but I'm sorry. Araujo.
Julian Araujo. So he's
Araujo. There we go.
Yeah, he's someone who would have been. Araujo and Bello both would have been U20 eligible, except the U20 World Cup for the summer got canceled.
Got it.
So they're babies. I mean, we are playing like children, and it's pretty cool.
It's just difficult. I don't know when the last time I watched a LA Galaxy, other than maybe the Trafico game against LAFC, and then 2, Real Salt Lake. I'm sorry. I'm just like, they don't
Yeah.
intrigue
When are you
me.
going to see him?
Yeah.
And if you,
that's like, I just don't know who these guys are.
if you are, you're not going to be like, oh, who's that right back? None of these guys are particularly like standout players. So it's not like you're watching this and it's like, oh, like the way you'd watch Carlos Vela and be like, this guy is amazing. We don't have a lot of those guys laying around in our U23s.
Touche.
So go into your
Yeah, who's our? I get you. Got to tell me that that's Andres Perea at holding midfield, right?
That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping Perea starts right away at holding mid. Again, I don't think he'll have that much to do defensively. So you could play Jackson Ewell is the other sort of contender for this. He's a Minnesota guy.
You like him, don't you?
I like him because I like the way he passes. I like the way he disguises his passes. Where we have a lot of players who sort of play the obvious pass. And when I say obvious, I mean when you're watching it from the camera angle on TV, you're like, oh, this is the way he's facing, this is the way his hips are facing, this is where he's going to pass with it. And it's very obvious where it's going to go. And Ewell is just very good at like looking like that and then just hitting a pass to a totally different player, which has a lot of value in the way we're trying to play. The rub on him is that he's not necessarily going to be as tough defensively as some of the other players, or as he won't be as tough defensively as the job might require, we'll say.
And is he not as much of like a battling, like back and forth number 8? I hate using the numbers, but like more of a two-way player. And he's more of like sit deep and kind of clean things up. And
so I don't know if I'd even say that. He doesn't really have that kind of reputation as being like a sit deep and play the way like a Will Trapp might. Where he just wants to stay at home. Like he's played a lot of he was a number 8 if we're using those numbers for a long time with San Jose.
What do you feel about those? How do you feel about the number system? Great.
I think they can be a useful shorthand, but when you're talking about like a player in this sense, like one player, you have to say he's a number 8, and then you have to use like 4 more sentences to say what his actual role will be. He's a number 8 who's going to be asked to do X, Y, and Z. You know, like you can't just say he's a number 8. A number 8 gives you a baseline of where he'll be on the field relative to the rest of the team. But you have to also say, this is what we're asking him to do specifically. So in this case, you know, we'd be asking this player to kind of just sit deep with the 2 center backs. And really he's going to be the line breaking passer, I think, in this game, because we won't have too much defensive work to do.
Fair enough. So
but I still want it to be Perea, and I want it to be a test of whether or not Perea can also do the line breaking. I think it's assumed that he can do the defensive work and the pressing on the defensive side, but can we rely on him to open things up with his passing?
Nice. Wow, who's in front of him?
So one of my favorite players on the domestic side for the U.S. is Sebastian Lejet. He's very good looking, and
that boy.
his wife is a girlfriend, partner, whoever is as well.
Becky G, yeah. So there's this like they're like a celebrity couple at this point. So it's a little bit of like a TMZ USMNT crossover, and
which we know you love,
of course. I don't. But I think Lejet is also a very good player, and I think he had been underrated for a long time because his club is a bit of like a tire fire. He plays for Los Angeles Galaxy, and he's not necessarily
fire.
He's not like he doesn't always look great in MLS. But I think he's this unique case where every time he comes to the U.S., I think he plays really well and always has like an actual positive effect on the game. He doesn't just like fill a spot and just hold a place. I think he actually like contributes to making us better. So I think he's really useful, and I think at this point that has become his status on the team as well. I don't think it's just my opinion anymore. I think he's going to probably be a nailed on starter for this camp.
So is he in your? Since we're talking to him specifically, is he in your top 18 full if everybody's healthy and everybody's open for selection?
Yeah, if everyone's available, I think he's still in the squad. I don't know if he'd be a starter, but I think he'd be very close.
Who's playing with him in there?
In this January camp?
Yeah.
So this is another one where I'm going to punt because there are 3 other center mids in that discussion. It'd be Christian Roldan, who is what I would call a Greg Burhalter favorite. In that first year, Christian Roldan had more center midfield minutes in matches than any other player except for Weston McKennie. So even though he does feel very much like a placeholder player to me, he was holding the place a lot. So he spent a lot of time holding that place. I don't know if in this pool, Burhalter will feel like there are other players who are better. The other options would be Kellen Acosta, who's having a bit of like a resurgence in these domestic camps.
I always liked him.
He's
he moves the ball well. Like I don't know, he's good.
He's good. And so what's happened over the last year is Burhalter has shifted his system a little bit to be more aggressive, especially defensively. And I think that's going to benefit a player like Kellen Acosta, who was out in the cold for much of 2019. I think we'll definitely see whether or not he is sort of leapfrog players in this new system. And then the other one is another sort of baby. It's Tanner Tessman. Do you guys know the Tanner Tessman background?
No, give us it.
He's another U20 guy, which means he was born in 2001. If the U20 World Cup was going to happen, I know.
Dude, that was the last that was the last age of kids that I coached were 2001s, and they were like 15, 16 at the time. And it was I think it was like the 15-year anniversary or whatever of September 11th, and these kids did not know what it was, and I was like, oh my God, I was your age when this happened, guys.
So Tanner Desmond's a child, but not only is he a child, he just played his first season with FC Dallas. In like 2 weeks before the season started, in March of 2020, it was still undecided whether he was going to actually play professional soccer or whether he was going to go be the place kicker for the Clemson football team.
Wait, what?
Wow.
Good Lord. So he can boot it.
He can hit a ball. He's a big fella.
Really?
When you watch FC Dallas play, and I would watch FC Dallas because I have so many young American eligible players, Tanner Tessman looks like a trick of like camera perspective. He is such a big dude that like he would be like the farthest away player on the screen, and he would still like look much bigger than the players who were closer to you on the screen. So it's like you couldn't quite figure out what was happening. It looked like somebody messed up like a Photoshop and made him too big. He's a big fella, and he's 20.
I want to see this kid play then. He does look like a big boy. Good Lord.
You're filling him up.
Yeah.
So that's going to be an interesting one, but I have no idea who will start. It could be any of those guys. It could be Acosta, Roldan, or Tessman.
What kind of player is Tessman? Is he just murder people, or is he good on the ball too?
He's a little bit of both. He's much better on the ball than you would think. So if you thought he was just going to be like a murderer, you'd be like, yeah, of course he's this big. But then he's actually got like a decent nuance to him when the ball's at his feet. So that's the hope, is that he's going to get polished up a little bit and really be just a game controlling monster of a player.
Interesting. I want to see that guy get the
You like him, bracket. Okay. He hits a lot of like 60-yard diagonals. Like doesn't require any effort, minimal effort, and he just pings the ball 50 yards in the air to a dude's feet.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so then talk about your front line. Again, a spot where you've got Josie out the door and Paul Arriola that are like, obviously Josie is a mainstay in the past, and this is like his first time he's played in a while for the national team. And then
I think he hasn't played since the Gold Cup in 2019 when he lost to Mexico in the final. So I think Josie's going to start up top. I think this is going to be like his test to see whether he's still the best forward that the U.S. has, which is very possible. I think Arriola is going to start, and then I think Chris Mueller is going to start on the other wing. So we'll have a front three of Josie, Paul Arriola, and Chris Mueller. I think those are pretty locked in.
That's too bad.
Any of those?
Daryl DK, that guy is like, you want to talk about a beast.
Did you watch him at all? I don't know. You guys probably watched some of the college. Did you see him in college playing?
He went to UConn? Did he? Or
no, he was ACC though. It was either Wake Forest or
Virginia.
Okay,
I think you're right, Brack, because they made the College Cup, and he scored like an unbelievable goal. I think.
That's all he does. All he does is score unbelievable goals. He hits the out of the ball. Like he can.
You can say shit. It's okay. He's
more explicit now for this episode. Well done.
And I always make sure it's explicit in case we offend somebody accidentally. Man, he's a unit though. Good Lord.
You look up any of his highlights from Virginia, and I honestly think goalkeepers will like duck out of the way of his shots. And this makes sense too, because since I do a bunch of the stat nerd stuff, he is vastly outperforming his expected goals for that last season, Orlando.
Oh, you love expected goals. I
do. I'm really excited with expected goals. So his underlying stats say he isn't going to score that many as many goals as he did for Orlando, and going forward. But I think he's almost like an analytics glitch, because he hits the ball so freaking hard that even though like normally based on this shot it should be saved, like goalkeepers just cannot save his shots. It's incredible.
6'2", 225. Like, I mean, like that, and he can run. Like that's, I mean, you put him out wide and just like literally let him just run at these poor Trinidad boys. And
So yeah, we'll have to see. Josie's an
6'2",
interesting one. How big is that? Like, that's insane.
I was gonna say that's like that's a little taller than me.
the same weight though.
But this is his playing weight. This is like his prime peak physical condition playing weight.
I'm just pulled up his like freshman year college highlights, and he's just absolutely turning people and torching them.
Yes, if you want to enjoy yourself, pull up Daryl DK highlights.
He's just a man amongst boys.
So Greg, is he a guy that plays like would be your target like Josie, or do you put him out on the wing? Where does I'm not like, and I've only seen.
Looks like he plays through the middle.
He'd play up top. Yeah, he'd play central, but he doesn't just have to be a target. Like, he can move. He moves really well, and he's actually he's actually pretty good on the ball. So it's not like he's not a bull in a china shop. Like he'll connect and combine and play some cool stuff. And he has like good movement where he's moving to the right channels at the right times.
Every highlight I'm watching of him is him like dropping into the hole, receiving it, turning it, and playing somebody through, or dropping the hole, spinning somebody, and running.
It's that thing where he's got these hips, right? So he just gets a little bit of leverage, and that's it. You're not going to get back around him once you're on the wrong side of him. That's ball game.
I mean, I'm just like watching you describe this as he does it. It's amazing. Okay, so I like that lineup. I'm super tempted to have you get back in the mix after the game and kind of talk about it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
I need a prediction though.
Yeah, we love predictions.
I'm not a big one for predicting score. I have no idea, but what I'll tell you what I think they'll kind of how they'll set up. So it'll be like a 4-3-3, and I'm predicting that like Mueller and Areola will sort of be will stay wide for the most part, and I think Lejet and Tessman Lejet and whoever is the other center midfielder will sort
Hopefully
of jump.
Tessman.
I hope. I think that's the least likely of the three. Will sort of occupy the spaces on that same line, on that same horizontal line. So they'll be really aggressive with their positioning, and I think it'll essentially turn into an attacking drill for 90 minutes.
Fair enough. Well, so let's plan to have you come back and talk about the game afterwards, because I'm going to now go out of my way and watch it. Hopefully, I'm sure Blake will be able to pull it up on the live stream out in the country.
Well, what platform is it on?
Oh, geez.
Probably ESPN Plus, I would guess. We'll get that.
I'm sure
we'll figure that out.
Be on like cable.
Yeah.
They don't get around with these. The other reason they have these games is to.
Uh-oh.
Do we lose you? No, we're good. Gregory,
we're watching this one.
All right.
I can never watch live soccer. I don't know how you guys do, but I always have to watch it after the fact because of the children running around.
What's Yes, we don't know it, do we?
No, we'll figure that out. We'll put that in our intro or outro though. Well, so Greg, I guess maybe
there you go.
Fox Sports 1, great. So Greg, let's tighten it up now and then have you back. And when you come back, think about we're gonna have a little Iowa soccer section in this next one. We want to make sure we respect your time, and I know Blake's got to go do some snow removal. And I'm sure that we won't have as much to talk about after the game. We'll just kind of talk about who was good and who was bad and how the result went, and then we can do a quick little Iowa soccer discussion, because I would love to hear some of your thoughts on that as somebody who's been involved in club soccer, high school soccer, and then now has a child that will be potentially participating at a certain level.
Be a soccer player.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so thanks again, man. It's super fun to see your face and chat.
Great to see you guys. I'm happy to be here. Happy to come back.
Thanks, Greg.
All right. Be safe out there.
Thanks, Gregory. All right, Steves, I really enjoyed that. I hadn't seen Greg in a while, so even if it was just a Zoom, nice to see his face.
It's funny, you were a little bit you were a bit late to the meeting, but you mentioned, first thing you mentioned was his beard, and I said the same thing to him. I hadn't seen him it's been years, I think.
Strong beard game from Greg.
I wonder if I didn't even ask. I wonder if it's like a Rona beard, because it was good.
It was for sure. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that chat. We certainly did, and I think we will have Greg come back and just kind of give a little chat about the result of the game and kind of who he liked and who he didn't. I'm gonna try to go out of my way to watch that game. I don't know about you.
I am now.
Make sure I'm knowledgeable. Yeah, I want to make sure I'm knowledgeable for the chat. But yeah, so I guess in the meantime, what we should tell you guys all to check out the Scuffed Podcast. It's all over.
Yep,
It's on Apple and Google and all those good things.
Yep, and they're on Twitter at Scuffed Pod. And Greg's got one of the most creative, I think, Twitter handles.
Away goals.
Oh, at away goals. Yeah, that's genius, I think.
Yeah, Greg's a very, very clever young guy. Always fun to chat with. You should definitely check out the Scuff Soccer Podcast, especially if this is of any interest to you, because they talk all U.S. national team all the time, right, Steves?
Yeah, and like he said, they're talking to guys too that are when they're kids before they make it big, and some of those stories he talked about, Serginho Dest and whatnot, is pretty cool. So yeah, and if you want to like kind of watch what we were talking about or see what Greg's beard looks like, jump onto our YouTube page. You can check it out. Search Kick It Forward, and then Ben, I'll let you kind of take it away with our other social media.
Oh, you love blowing me up on this. Well, I think the best way to do it is go to our website, www.kifsoccer.com, and you can click on all of our social media from there. I think on Twitter we're at KIF Soccer. We're the same on Instagram and on Facebook. That's all I got. I don't know about TikTok anymore. I just start Googling Kick It Forward. So if you Google Kick It Forward, you'll find us. Hopefully you enjoyed today's chat, like we said. And if I guess this is the Tuesday prior. It's quite snowy one out there. So hopefully you're staying safe and you got your shoveling done while the snow is still light, because it's probably not going to be that way the whole time, as it seems.
We'll find out.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time.